Yeah, you should not be trying to take immediate action on every single task or impulse that pops into your head or comes across your desk or that shows up on your to-do list. Because guess what, my friend? Not everything deserves your time, attention, or energy in this moment. You're listening to the Life Edit Project podcast, where busy, ambitious high achievers get the tools they need to fight perfectionism and overwhelm so they can smash their goals without all the drama. I'm your host, recovering overachiever turned professional life coach, Elizabeth Burrows. Let's get to it. Good day, good people. Welcome back to episode 43 of the Life Edit Project podcast. As always, I am your host, Coach Elizabeth. And as always, I'm super excited that you have joined me again today. We've got another juicy episode right here for you today. And I'm really excited because we are starting a 4-part mini-series on a topic that is near and dear to my heart, productivity. Yes, productivity. So if you tuned into the show last season, you may recall that I actually did a 4-part mini-series on self-care. And I just really enjoyed taking a deep dive into one particular subject and exploring different parts of that subject through a mini-series, kind of connecting these conversations together and letting the ideas and concepts build on each other, that I decided to do another mini-series in this season as well. And productivity is the kind of topic that so many of my clients have needed help with. It's also a challenge that I have done a lot of work on personally for myself. So I have a lot to say about productivity. It's actually a bit of a challenge to figure out how I want to compress it down into 4 different conversations, and only 4. But today I'm really excited. In the next 4 episodes, we will be focusing on some of the things that can have a huge impact on how productive you are. So some of these conversations will be about helping you address challenges. Some will be more about helping you build strategies for success when it comes to your productivity levels. And today we are starting with, I think, an element of productivity that all the productivity experts, and honestly, a bunch of us high achievers, are all equally obsessed with, and that is how to beat procrastination. Yeah, we're going there. Now, I want to just jump in and start here with something that might be a bit of a controversial statement as someone who is a life coach whose specialties include productivity. And here's what I want to say. I think procrastination actually gets a bad rap. We blame so much of what we think has gone wrong in our lives on procrastination. And a lot of the times, we don't even know what procrastination really is. And we don't even know what we mean when we say that we're procrastinating. So I don't think that procrastination is the boogeyman that we've made it out to be. In fact, I think procrastination is actually really simple, but it's also really misunderstood. And because we misunderstand it, it feels scary and it feels unbeatable and insurmountable, but it doesn't have to be that way. If you want to beat procrastination, there are really just 2 things that you've got to be able to do. Just 2. One is to recognize when it's happening, and 2, address the root cause instead of the symptoms. So we're going to break down these 2 steps in the rest of this episode. Are you ready to dive in? Let's go. The first step to beating procrastination is to recognize when it's happening. And in order for you to do that, you have to know what it looks like. So that means, you guessed it, it's time for another Coach Elizabeth definition. Grab your pen and grab your paper and write this down if you're taking notes. Procrastination is an unnecessarily delayed action or unnecessary inaction that complicates, reduces, or eliminates your ability to achieve a desired outcome. One more time. Procrastination is an unnecessarily delayed action or an unnecessary inaction that complicates, reduces, or eliminates your ability to achieve a desired outcome. So part of what I hope jumps out at you from this definition is this realization. Not all delays or inaction is the same, and not all delays or inaction is procrastination. Because not all delays and inaction will affect your ability to get things done or reach your goals. So I want to say this because I know that as high achievers, we are very used to almost instinctively beating ourselves up in advance for procrastination that we know is on the way, right? And it's very easy to be resistant to the thought of some delays and inaction not actually being procrastination. But I want to say this. You don't always have to be taking action. Stop making it a problem that you're not always operating at 100% capacity 100% of the time. You are allowed to rest. You're allowed to take breaks. You're also just allowed to be a human and not a robot. I say that to my clients all the time. Be a human, not a robot. And you're allowed to do all of those things without needing to use those experiences as psychological brass knuckles that you use to beat yourself up when you're not, quote, being productive. Okay? And yeah, you should not be trying to take immediate action on every single task or impulse that pops into your head or comes across your desk or that shows up on your to-do list. Because guess what, my friend? Not everything deserves your time, attention, or energy in this moment. In fact, I'm going to say this, lean in so that you don't miss it, turn the background noise down, turn the volume up because I want you to hear this. Learning how and when to delay action is actually a top-tier productivity strategy. Bloop, I said it. Yeah, so just knowing that you have delayed action or perhaps you are sitting in inaction does not automatically mean that you are procrastinating. So that's the first thing. Also, yeah, there will be some delays that happen that you don't want. They are undesirable. It is not optimal. But if they are still unavoidable, that also does not count as procrastination. And I'm spending some time here just really focusing on what isn't procrastination because I think it's important that we get clear on what procrastination is and what it's not before I tell you how to solve for procrastination. Because getting the diagnosis right is half of the battle, like any problem you try to solve. It's like trying to clean a smudge off of a window, but not realizing that the smudge is on the other side of the glass. It doesn't matter what kind of cleaning supplies you use or how fancy the rag is that you're using. If you're not wiping the right side of the glass, it's still going to be dirty. Likewise, if the delay or inaction that you're trying to solve for isn't actually procrastination, there isn't a single tool or strategy that I can give you that'll help you feel more productive. Really important. Okay, so not only is delaying action and procrastinating not the same thing, it's also really important to note that for the things that are procrastination, not all procrastination looks the same. So it can be really easy to spot the obvious signs of procrastination, like binging Netflix for 3 hours straight, or scrolling on TikTok, or hitting the snooze button, right? Those are all of the things that we think of ourselves doing when we are taking note of procrastination showing up in our lives. But what about the things that you're doing that fool yourself into believing that you're being productive? Because some procrastination looks productive. In fact, as high achievers, we can procrastinate very creatively in ways that look very productive. So, um, creative procrastination can look like doing low priority or less meaningful tasks when we're actually just avoiding the high priority tasks that we need to be working on. It can also look like doing something and then redoing something, but never quite finishing it, right? For example, let's say you want to write a book. You might tell yourself that you're not procrastinating if you're actively writing the book, but if you write chapter 1 and then you erase it all and then you write it over again and then you erase it all and then you rewrite it again, you are not actually being productive. That is a very creative way of procrastinating. Yeah. Hurts, don't it? Another way that procrastination can dress up very creatively and look productive is when we do a lot of pre-work while avoiding the real work. So let's stick with the example of wanting to write a book. So if writing a book is your goal, there's a whole lot of pre-work that you could be doing that's not actual writing. And it might feel productive, but if you are not actually putting words to pages in a way that leads to a draft of your book, you can be procrastinating. So this might look like doing a whole bunch of research on the best outline to use for your book, or listening to hundreds of podcast interviews from best-selling authors who are giving all of their best tips. Or it might look like spending lots of time going through blog posts and lists to decide what genre of book you want to publish, or having lots of conversations with different publishers trying to figure out if you're going to self-publish or try to get a book agent. All of those things, yeah, they're a part of the process, but none of those things is actually writing the book. That's pre-work. That's not the real work. And if you fall into the trap of focusing only on pre-work in such a way that it's what keeps you away from doing the real work, my friend, you might be creatively procrastinating. So I want you to practice spotting not just the obvious signs of procrastination in your own life, but what are those creative ways that you dress up procrastination in your own life? Because you've got to get good at recognizing it in order to beat it. Okay, so that's the first step. The second step, step 2, to beating procrastination is to address the root cause and not the symptoms. So 9 times out of 10, the reason you're procrastinating isn't because you don't know what to do. 9 times out of 10, the reason you're procrastinating is because you're simply trying to avoid some type of uncomfortable or undesirable feeling. That's it. You put off the work because you're trying to avoid whatever the feeling is that comes up for you when you think about doing that task or doing that activity. For example, sometimes we avoid certain tasks or work because they stir up really uncomfortable feelings like confusion or overwhelm or helplessness or even anger, right? If you're not a person who's comfortable with being angry, you might avoid doing something that angers you. None of us like feeling confused, and it's very easy to believe that if we feel confused, that we can't move forward and maybe we should just do something else, right? And so that's what we do. Sometimes the feelings we're trying to avoid are not just uncomfortable feelings, but they might be feelings that we think are actually taboo for us, feelings that we're not allowed to have. For example, if you feel like you're not allowed to show weakness, to experience the feeling of being weak, then it makes sense that you avoid the particular task or project that makes you feel really vulnerable if you associate vulnerability with weakness. Or if there's a task that you can't do by yourself and you need help, if you associate needing help with weakness, then it makes sense that you avoid trying to take on that task or project because you need help with it. Another big feeling that all of us avoid is the feeling of shame. Nobody likes feeling ashamed. That's definitely something that can stop us from taking action even once we realize that we are procrastinating. Especially because we tend to feel ashamed when we realize that we're procrastinating. Often we feel like this is something that I told myself I want to do. I know I should be doing it, but I haven't done it yet, and I'm ashamed for that. And that shame makes it even harder to get started taking action. And then sometimes we procrastinate because we don't actually want to do the thing. And not just the task itself, but we don't actually want the thing that the task will accomplish for us. So if the goal you've set for yourself, the task, the project, whatever it is, if the goal isn't actually a goal that you want, of course it makes sense that you're not taking action. Because one thing about us humans, it's very hard for us to take decisive action when we are in conflict with ourselves. So if a lack of desire is at the root of your procrastination, you don't need better time management strategies or a special new app or a fancy new planner. You have to either get yourself on board for your goal, or you have to give yourself permission to opt out. Because one thing's for sure and two things for certain, trying to straddle the fence every time will get you more procrastination. So, when you find yourself procrastinating, I want you to ask yourself the magic question. If you're taking notes, write this down. What feeling am I trying to avoid? And then tune in for the answer. And then once you identify that feeling or those feelings, because yes, we're humans and we can experience more than one feeling at a time. Once you know what feeling or feelings you're trying to avoid, get busy solving for that feeling. Now, if you don't know how to work through uncomfortable feelings that you would rather avoid, that's when it can be really helpful to work with a life coach like me. I help my clients overcome procrastination by teaching them a step-by-step process for identifying and then counteracting the unproductive feelings that get in the way of them taking action so that they can stop procrastination in its tracks whenever it shows up. And I can help you do the same thing too. Just use the link that's in my show notes to book a sales call with me for one-on-one coaching, and we can get started whenever you're ready. Because I'm ready. Are you ready? Don't procrastinate on it. Okay, so that's it. And that's all for today's episode. I think that was a little quick, y'all. I don't know. I hope it was both entertaining and enlightening. I will be back in your ears next week with part 2 of this productivity mini-series. I hope you join me because I can't wait to chat with you again. All right. In the meantime, go take action on something that you've been avoiding. Feel your feelings and do it anyway. All right? Peace. Hey, thanks for tuning into this week's episode. If you have a question or a favorite insight from today's conversation, I would love to hear from you. Send me a message on social media. I'm in all the places. My handle is @LifeEditProject, all one word. And of course, my accounts are linked up in the show notes to make it easy for you, so holla at your girl. I'll be back in your ears next week with a fresh episode. Make sure that you are subscribed to the Life Edit Project podcast wherever you like to listen so that you don't miss a thing. Until then, peace.